So moving on to our second extension of this podcast, we're looking at Jarrett Allen now. With the Cavaliers, he's a player that I think he's just one of the most solid centers that you can find in the NBA. Again, not a player he's not a go-to player, but as far as what he offers in his energy and rim protection, he's just so solid. So for this deal, Allen still had a couple of years left, unlike Markkanen, but it's going to be a 3-year, $91 million extension. So that amounts to about $131 million over the next 5 years for Jarrett Allen. The extension starts in 26, 27, so there's still a couple of years left before that kicks in. That puts him at about $28 million, which is a good increase over his $20 million that he's earning right now. Again, that increase in what you can offer a player in an extension in this new CBA is such a help for a team like the Cavaliers, because otherwise you might have just elected to wait until he hit free agency and then maybe try to get an extension or get a new contract that way. But they lock him back in. So he joins Mobley and getting an extension this summer. He also joins Donovan Mitchell, so he's on a long-term contract, and Garland is already on a new contract. So all those guys are locked in for several years. Your core is set. They've really doubled down on this because they didn't accept trade offers that were coming in. Teams were interested in Allen. They were interested in Donovan Mitchell, and they're staying the course here with this extension here for Allen. So I think, again, this is a good deal to make. He's well under the max when the new extension kicks in 2 years with increased money coming into the NBA. He's still a sub $30 million a year player. So with a guy like Allen, who is going to be a great rebounder for you, and he's going to be a great piece for a winning team because he defends the rim. And any team that's going to be in any kind of contention has to have a player like that can defend the rim reasonably well. And he's a great screener. He's a great teammate. So I like the value proposition here, and it's just going to get better. I think for the Cavaliers here, they're doubling down. I think there's more questions about the on-court perspective of this deal. Is he going to fit with Mobley? Are they going to be able to make a winning core out of this long term? But just from a monetary perspective, I think it makes sense.
So this one I'm not as high on, and I'm less certain on how I feel about it right now. I was pretty surprised that this extension ended up getting done, just because how rare it is for how less common it is for extensions to get done when there's more than a year left on a deal, and I this is just like a new market breaking type of number because generally the market is pretty harsh on centers. Like the past 4 to 5 years, the tier of center that Jarrett Allen is, they're making around what he's making, 20 million. Guys like him and Nikola Vucevic, Jakob Poeltl, he's better than those guys, but this is kind of like what this sub all star, but like above average starting center type of center has been making. And this is so for the Cavs, it's probably a big calculation that they think that one, he's gonna keep playing at a high level, but also that this whatever $30 million a year salary will actually be team friendly, and that they're thinking that with the cap going up, that players like him will make even more money. So if that's the bet, I get why they did it, but I also think that just with centers, we don't know exactly how it's going to shake out until it happens. And the only other center that's starting to get you starting to like break above that range, it's not a max center. You just saw with Nick Claxton, he's going to get 25 mil a year. So I think so. That's the only way that I don't think it's going to be like a terrible deal, but for it to be like a bargain for the Cavs, they're basically betting on the center market just breaking above the $30 million range for these sub max level guys. I think for Jarrett Allen, this is I like this a lot better for Jarrett Allen. So that's why I was surprised that he took it. I just didn't think the Cavs would just commit to that. So with all the factors I said about centers, if you can get that level of money, I mean Isaiah Hardenstein, I forgot he's the other guy. Got 30 mil a year, but short term deal. So that's the other market breaker.
And declining too. That one's declining as well. So
yeah, and I'm sure that they'll probably decline that team option and get him at something a little cheaper. So that makes a lot of sense for the Thunder. So just given just how rough the market could be for centers, even with the cap expected to go up all these years, I think it's a good move for him to take this money now while it was offered. Now, the other good thing for the Cavs is they could potentially still trade him this season, but it seems like they're just going to run it back, run everything back as much as they can. They'll probably just see how things go under Atkinson, and just I kind of don't anticipate them trading him at all, anybody right now. See what happens at the deadline.
I agree. Especially as far as the timing is concerned, because they maxed out his extension. So it's like if you were going to rush to get the deal done, if you're only going to be able to max him out, why did you have to hurry to do that? Unless you like really think he's going to just is he threatening free agency already? So you want to lock him in, or is it really let's lock him in now because now we have the flexibility of trading him on a long-term deal, and that might be what it is. And just to jump in as far as the percentages don't make it seem as bad as the overall deal. And I do agree, Yossi, as far as the market is concerned, you're absolutely right. When you talk about Nick Claxton at 25, Hartenstein, I think he's getting what 27 or 28 this year, and then it goes down, and then there's a team option. So this is by far better than those deals. But he's going to get around 16 and a half. Again, this is assuming 10% increases. In the first year of the extension, it's 16.5%. It goes down to almost 16% and then 15%. So it's not crazy percentages, but again, it's for a center. You sign him earlier. My biggest gripe about all of this, I think more is that you signed all of these guys, and I think what everyone can kind of say or think at least right now is that does Garland, Mitchell, Allen, Mobley get it done? Do we think that core can get it done? And that's the major question, because when we're talking about in 26 and 27, them and with Strus, you're over 126% or 106% of the cap, and that's with the increases. So you're over, you're locked in with those guys unless you make a move. So, and that's the thing. So are you committed to these guys, or are you locking them in and you're just like most of the teams now? Let's sign them now, figure it out later. And that might be what they're doing. Let's figure it out with Atkinson this year. Everyone's locked in long term. If we can't figure it out with these guys, they're not negative salary. It's not a negative asset. So we can unload any of these guys. We just have to figure out which one we want to unload. So that might be what it is. But I think you're right. It's an interesting contract at this point. At first, it was a little bit of a sticker shock when I look at the percentages now, because it's in 26, 27 when it starts. It doesn't seem as bad as it initially did. But again, I don't understand jumping in so early to max someone out, other than if you want that asset to trade, knowing that you have them locked up long term now. I think that might be what it is. In comparison to when you think of Lowry, right? So Lowry, you had him on a 1-year deal. No one wanted to trade for him, right? Because then they had to deal with the extension. You have Allen earlier on, obviously not as good of a player, but now you know that you have him more long term. That might be what they're looking at.